There was a time when parents from Generation X used to tell their children to only and only study. And not to forget, do not play or involve in sports. But boom, COVID-19 happened and broke all these myths. While ironically, every parent say, beta sehat ka khayal rakhna. And I couldn't figure out ever that how to keep yourself healthy without playing sports. So today, Education Post News has Mr. Jitender Panihar, who is the Chief Human Resource Officer at Fitelo. Fitelo is a startup in the fitness sector which is trying to redefine the weight loss and making people achieve long-term wellness through simple, powerful, and holistic changes in your nutrition and eating habits. Like there is nothing you have to keep on pestering about calorie loss or calorie count every time. So, and also, Mr. Panihar is also passionate about HR technology and innovation and advising and mentoring startups and founders, those who are hiring on the for these their startup, and best practices and solutions involved in the sector. So, Jitendra, welcome to the Education Post News.
Thank you, Tanay, for having me here.
I hope I have described about Fitelo and even your enthusiasm properly.
No, sure. Yeah, I think that is what I am, and that's what we are trying to do. At Fitelo, we are trying to solve weight problem of the globe, not just in India.
Yes, because many times every time, even if we listen to all the actors, they all keep on saying and calorie loss, calorie count, 1500 calorie and everything. So when I was researching about Fitelo, then I was literally happy that there is a kind of a proper startup and proper organization which is working on that and working on that solution. So coming to my first question, when I was going through your profile, it something intrigued me that you pursued BSc in physics before studying post graduation in labor laws, and that's a very good. I mean, this post graduation in labor laws, personally, it's very good thing. I mean, it's a very unconventional but potential one. So during that time, I also came across the reason I'm starting with this question. A study revealed that a study has revealed that it is one of those top 10 courses, BSc in physics, whose graduates are facing underemployment, that they are not very good employed. So the reason I'm starting this whole conversation from this question, because across the many colleges and especially in tier 2 and tier 3 cities, what happens that students sometimes or most of the times in herd, they to save their 1 year, they opt for BSc physics and some other those courses that later on they face underemployment. So that's the reason. And your insights on the BSc physics, and you studied this subject almost 2 decades ago. So what are your views today for this course, and who should study this subject if uh, right now clock is today in corresponding to 20 years back?
So I think I'll share my perspective on why I did that.
Sure.
The only reason why I studied physics because I was in love with physics. And I think that was the simplest and the purest reason that I can define on this conversation. I'd always enjoyed science, uh, right? And I was always a very, very curious uh, individual, back then and even today. Uh, and despite general perception and understanding about who should go for science and who should pursue science, more specifically technical subjects like physics. It was my passion for the subject which got me uh, to sign up for that. And interestingly, somehow when I was applying for this, I ended up choosing something else. But, I just sat in a couple of classes to realize that, I'm going to be missing something very, very dear and important, if I do not do physics. So I think after just 1 or 2 days of me having chosen something else, I had this realization, and I got back to do what I always enjoyed. So this was the purest reason of why I did physics, and I did 3 years of physics. It was physics honors, by the way. Um, I really enjoyed those 3 years, um,
So,
and fortunately,
yes.
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so I mean, yes, that's a very, of course, that something like heart wants it, heart wants it, what it wants, it wants. So it's a definitely the purest true reason. So if today, if someone has to, along with this, that is, if he or she wants to study physics, is there any other perspective that any other uh, student who should study this subject in current time? Because many times it happens that when they are not paid well, even for their passion or the purest their love, sometimes I mean the researchers have shown that sometimes they face anxiety or sometimes something that. So what do you have to say on that?
So I think this is a very subjective question,
Hmm.
right? This happens with every subject and every qualification that you achieve.
Okay.
So it's not just about physics. The answer could even be for an engineer as well, or even let's say for a doctor. So love and passion does not always give you the success that you want, in your bank account.
Hmm.
So that's why I'm saying, it's a very subjective question. My answer to this is very simple. If you have passion for the subject, if you really love the subject, then you should go for it and try and pursue it like a career. I think that is the best attempt that you can make. So making your passion as your career. Now there are two possibilities. Either you succeed or you don't succeed. And I think if you succeed, I mean, there are anyways multiple options, right? And somewhere I agree and I disagree both at the same time because it's contextual about a lot of things. uh, whether there are opportunities, whether, the pay packages are good enough or no. So the answer is both yes and no. It totally depends, how one pursues and at what level do they pursue. If you look at, the current trend, there's so much of focus on STEM,
Yes.
right? Which is science, technology,
Technology,
mathematics,
engineering, mathematics, yes.
right? So there is a lot of focus on science, and if you look around, it's all science, right? We talk about AI, we talk about Chat GPT, we talk about LLMs and everything, right? It is all science. Ultimately a subject, which we typically not stereotype, but typically redefine as engineering. But considering the focus that organizations and even governments have, there's huge amount of scope, on science as well. Right from a national level to a global level as well.
Hmm.
Now, if you are pretty good with research, right? I mean, I would advise that there are a lot of opportunities in research.
Hmm.
You can actually pursue research, within India, outside of India. You can pick up research projects, right? And there are a lot of organizations, which focus on research, innovation, technology, development, etc., etc. So there is definitely scope, but as I told you, just like any other qualification and any other subject, it has its own challenges down the line, and obviously, it also matters a lot on individual capability and skill sets as well.
Yes, very well put, and that's a yes, very redundant answer. So coming to your further journey, when I was going through, so recently, just before when I was preparing the questions for you, just recently, a week ago, or maybe, I mean, Karnataka's labor laws were when uh, they were trying to that they was they saying that Karnataka government was saying that IT companies are pushing them to work for 14 hours, and they were redefining the labor laws. So and you also studies master in labor laws. So I wanted to, I mean, across the India, not only in the context of Karnataka. Just only I mentioned it because you have been to Bangalore. So you studied master in labor laws. So according to you, what are your 5 issues, in your views, of course, with India's current labor laws that are not beneficial for both employers and employees. Because many times it happens that sometimes some laws are beneficial for employers, some laws are beneficial, but there must be something that kind of internation for both of them. So what's your views on that?
So I think this is a tricky question, and I think it's a trick question, right? You have asked, a law which is beneficial for both. I think fundamentally, whenever you look at something, right, uh, there is always a tension in that. So you're talking about two parties and addressing 100% satisfaction to both the parties. Wherever there are multiple parties, there is ought to be tension.
Yes.
So so it is very, very contextual. It is contextual in terms of the industry. It is contextual in terms of the audience that you're talking about.
Hmm.
It is contextual to the economic strata of that state and economic strata of the audience, right? So it's a combination of multiple things. But based on my experience and what I have seen in practice, I can try and take an attempt on what would be more fruitful to both employers and employees. So I think while there are labor laws defined, there is a lot of theory around it.
Hmm.
Now, for organizations and for employees both, there's a lot of theory around it. What will really help, and this is my first, I would say, suggestion, if not an issue.
Yes, sure.
What will be really great is if whatever we define in theory, there is a system which can ensure adherence to the system. So the biggest issue in today's context is while there are some laws that are drafted, some rules which are prescribed,
Hmm.
but the biggest issue is their implementation.
Hmm.
Now, employees feel that they are not implemented well enough.
Hmm.
On the other hand side, employers feel the rules are not implemented well enough
Okay.
or not understood well enough. So I think single law understood differently by both the audience. So the biggest issue or suggestion that can be addressed is if uh, clarity around what is theory and how do you ensure implementation of that law
Hmm.
is addressed. I think if we can do that, then both the parties can be on the same page.
Hmm.
Second aspect I would like to identify is the entire concept around statutory benefits,
Thank
around
you.
PF,
Hmm.
PSI, etc.
Yes.
So while there has a lot which has happened in recent times, there's a lot of automation, there's a lot of technology advancement which has happened. But I still feel, there is a lot that needs to be done, both from an organization perspective and also from an employee perspective,
Hmm.
right? The clarity, communication, articulation around statutory benefits is not great, I would
Yes,
say.
yes, yes. I
While
agree.
organizations try and do a lot, but I think as an audience and as a nation, right, I think we still, lack awareness in terms of what are the statutory benefits which applies to anyone and everyone, right? If you go out, let's say, open in the market.
Hmm.
And there is still a lot of confusion around how do you maximize your benefits? How do you take advantage of those benefits which
Hmm.
applies to you?
Hmm.
Now, and this problem is quite prevalent. I mean, a
Yes, I
fresher
can
also
understand. Yes.
experiences
Yes,
this problem,
definitely.
and someone, who has been in the system for about 20 years, faces the same problem. So I think there needs to be a lot more clarity, more awareness, and focus on uh, ensuring that everyone understands the applicability and benefits
Hmm.
by being on the same page. This is the second one. Third, I would say is, I mean, we as a nation uh, needs to focus more on the benefits. So if you look at other nations, uh, uh, right, I mean, they have a lot of statutory benefits
Yes.
over and above just PF and ASI. So, I mean, as a country, right, we do not have health insurance
Yes,
for every
yes,
citizen,
yes,
right?
right.
So you have health insurance for private employee,
Hmm.
uh, a PF, ESI. I mean, all of us know that
Yes,
what health
yes.
insurance benefits it provide, right?
Uh,
While there are tax rebates and exemptions,
hmm.
but I think this is one of the biggest issue wherein we do not have any social security benefits
Hmm.
for the masses. Now, I think it will be very useful for organizations if all these things are anyways taken care
Yes.
by the nation or by the government, because you don't have to kind of focus a lot on these basic hygienes. You don't have to spend that much of bandwidth. You don't have to kind of carry that much
Hmm.
liability,
Hmm.
documentation around it, etc., etc. And employees are also going to be pretty happy, right? Because everything is taken care. So the
Yes.
employee-employer relationship can actually evolve in that scenario. Now, so I believe, this is the third biggest issue. I mean, lack of social security benefits that we have. Uh, and I think these are the three most important ones, while there are a few, uh, I would say few more issues, but I would say that, they do lack in terms of importance. So I would just pick up these three.
No, but yeah, thanks for mentioning the last one because uh, many times, I mean, whenever just only the 31st July, just recently, we face everyone face the taxation and filing taxation, and we everyone has to whoever comes under the tax bracket. So all these statutory benefits, they all keep on murmuring and every contemplation that whether so. Thanks for mentioning this one that there should be clarity by the government because also a very big homework has been already done at the very big level. So thanks for mentioning that. So mm, going through your LinkedIn, I came across a post on hiring entry level and fresher for Fitelo. So
Mhm.
I'm just curious that why entry level employees are generally, not exceptionally, paid in that minuscule amount and a very not very that everyone is talking over the social media that yes, 10 years before what were the fresher salary and after 10 years what were the what right now what is the fresher salary and what CEOs and those others, I mean just people are talking over social media, even the entry level employees. So paid in the they are paid in the that amount even after 10 years. So even those freshers, the my question is around those freshers who have attained the required skills by the industries or by the all the sectors during their academics. So does it have any pattern that they are paid? And because when they are asked that yes, do you know that, if the freshman or the fresh college graduate says yes, I know that, if you do you know that, yes, I mean all the check boxes tick, but still many times they are paid in this. So are there any pattern if you see any?
So Tanay, if you have to uh, clarify what exactly is the question. It was not clear.
uh
What is the question?
does it have any pattern that they are that all the freshmen, that all the fresh graduates who are skilled, not unskilled or not half skilled, who are skilled, they have attained what their relevant industries they are studying, they check all the boxes but still they are paid. So does it have any pattern that all the organizations?
So I believe, I believe, it is the law of economics at play.
Okay.
And I'll talk about multiple pointers, and we can choose to go deep uh, in that. Now, I think India as a nation, is a demand supply
Hmm.
uh, game, right? So, look at the number of colleges that we have in India.
Hmm.
You look at, the employment data
Hmm.
and the employment opportunities.
Hmm.
So somewhere, you have to play a match game there. So I think, it's a classical economic problem wherein demand and supply are inversely relational, right? If the demand is more, the supply is less. The supply is
Yes.
high, the demand will be right. So ultimately, the cost is a function of the same metric, uh, right? So that's the first pointer I have to mention.
Okay.
Second is different industries have different parameters. There is no one industry which can come and tell that, okay, if we talk about IT, this is what a fresher gets paid. If you go to R&D, this is what a fresher gets paid. If you, let's say, go to agriculture, this is what a fresher gets paid. So I don't think, it can ever be that. So I think there is some fallacy in the question itself. Again, there is subjectivity. What is low?
Okay.
You asked a question that, they are paid low. So it's subjective, right? I mean, there's no set benchmark or fundamental metric, in the entire country or in the industry which says
Hmm.
that, okay, this is what is low.
Hmm.
It totally depends industry to industry.
Hmm.
And you can't compare agriculture with IT,
Yes,
or
definitely.
you can't compare IT with aerospace or defense,
Ah.
right? So different industries have different economic dynamics, I would
Hmm.
say.
Hmm.
Different industries will have different talent economy at play,
Okay.
right? So talent supply and demand. So it has to be looked at it, from that context. Second is uh, pay is a subjective aspect because there is no unified system or data, available at, let's say, national, state, or even at an
Hmm.
industry level, which means that, if someone is a BSc, right, needs to be paid, in a range of A to B. Or let's say someone with an engineer, in India, in Maharashtra, needs to be
Hmm.
paid within the range of A to B. While
Hmm.
there are definite norms that are being created, but
Hmm.
those norms are created, in terms of references, and I'm talking about minimum wages, right?
Hmm.
And again, you talk about minimum wages. I mean, it has a different applicability altogether. You
Yes.
again
Yes.
don't go back and say that, okay, for freshers, this is the range and everyone is ought to
Hmm.
pay that much. So this is the third aspect wherein, there is a lack of standardized system in place,
Hmm.
right, at multiple levels.
Yes. Yes.
Now, fourth, I would say again, uh, taking a cue from the law of economy,
Hmm.
I think uh, India as a nation and India as an audience,
Hmm.
right, is fairly labor intensive,
Hmm. Yes, definitely.
right? The competitiveness of the industry
Ah.
is a boon also and it's a pain also.
Yes.
So, for example, you put up a post on LinkedIn, right? You don't advertise the compensation.
Hmm.
You just talk about the skill sets and you just talk about what do you need.
Hmm.
Guess how many applications will you receive?
Lesser compared to as, yes, definitely.
Now, I would say that you will receive a lot of applications.
Really? Okay.
You will receive a lot of applications
Okay.
because there is there is mismatch in terms of demand and supply.
Okay. Point taken. Yes.
So I was looking at some data which
Hmm.
says around 60-70%, around 60% people are unemployable.
Yes. V-Box
What
just
comes
recently.
out of what comes out of the institute and what can get absorbed in the industry, right? So
Yes.
what happens to the rest
Yes.
40%?
Hmm.
So when you post one job which is about hiring a fresher, you will, let's say, have about 500 people vying for that job.
Hmm.
So there is huge amount of supply in the
Yes.
system,
Yes. Yes.
but the demand is extremely low.
Yes.
And that is where, organizations and industries can decide to take an economic call
Hmm.
that how much you pay. And there are no set and regulated guidelines, right?
Hmm.
I mean, one can't say that this is low.
Yes.
There can still be a lot of debates on LinkedIn. There can
Hmm.
still be a lot of conversations on multiple panels and platforms.
Hmm.
But I think those are subjective conversations, and everyone will choose to go with what they feel is the right perspective. There's no right
Yes.
and wrong.
Yes, yes.
right? I mean, some people, especially folks like you can create a lot of masala out of those conversations, but it's still subjective, right? I mean,
Yes, yes,
something
I agree.
which,
And thanks for mentioning that point
yeah,
that yes, there is no standardized pattern all across India that what is low. But as I as a example, and the report you were mentioning, it was of VBox skill index, and it was that only 52% of graduates, those who pursue higher education, 52% are employable. Around 48% are they are not skilled at the par with the industries. The reason I mention it because even if the 52% are skilled, so even they are, and 10 years before, there are many matrices available over the internet that 10 years ago, a fresher used to in IT, or I'm not naming that big name. In IT, a very of all those of 4 and 5, they used to receive 3.75 lakh, and even still they are receiving 3.75 lakh. Even they considering inflation and everything, COVID, health insurance, and all these things, around also budget and taxation as well. So that's why, and you according, I mean, in my own personal observation, as I reckon, you you can answer that because along with the labor laws and also
okay,
yes
got it.
to that, yes, yes.
So I'll try and answer this with a question. Okay.
Hmm,
Now assume 3.5 lakhs was getting paid 10
hmm,
years back,
hmm,
right? That was a talent economy
yes.
back then, 10 years back.
Hmm,
Today, if you make an offer of 3.5 lakhs to someone,
hmm,
and if there are 500 people who are ready to do the job,
hmm.
is it wrong?
Uh, no, I mean, yes, it's wrong because out of those 500, as you mentioned the data as well, that out of those 500, even if 250 people, 200 people are skilled and employable, at least they should, according to me, that 10 years of inflation and everything should have been in the picture, according to me, as you asked me.
So I think me and you are no one to actually answer on that person's behalf
Hmm,
who feels that their career, who feels that their economics, who feels their families, who feels their loans, their bank accounts fare well if they still go for 3.5. I think that person knows the best, right?
yes.
If that person still takes 30% net take home
Hmm,
post the surplus money,
hmm,
right? I think they are comfortable. That is what a talent needs. Now I'm talking about that person who feels 3.5 is a good enough. It's inflation beating compensation for him.
hmm.
It gives them a good kicker. And we have not talked about other benefits, right? Because what might also happen is while the base number has remained the same.
Hmm.
Now, while I completely agree that there is a lot of inflation adjustment that happens, right? And we all do those calculations while we create retirement uh, uh, corpus, etc., etc.
Hmm.
But I
Yes,
think in
yes.
this case, while the inflation has not gotten added, but you see there is still talent available, right? Who feels that 3.5 is the right compensation for their skill set. So I think there is something fundamentally wrong with the system, right? Not with the
Yes, yes,
organization.
yes. I'll just
So what
add
I'm
one.
trying to
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
please.
So what I'm trying to communicate here is while we can put the entire onus on organizations and industry, I think there is something fundamentally wrong with the system. If the organization is still paying 3.5, right? And there are 500 people vying for that job, there is something fundamentally wrong with the system,
Yes,
not
yes.
just with the organization and industry.
No, no, I wasn't. Yes, definitely, and
Yeah.
as that's why you correctly said that. Yes, I agree with you. Who am I to correct you? But I agree with you that
Yeah.
that's fundamentally wrong with everything. So, coming to mine, and one more point to add that I was talking about CTC 3.5 and this though available over LinkedIn. So, coming to my fourth question, so you are a recruiter from millennial generation,
Mm.
and now Gen Zs are aspiring for the jobs after graduation. Gen Z's time have they've already achieved 30 or 30 or around, at least they are 29 today. Have you found
Yeah.
any or some points that seem to you asynchronous or highly mismatched between these two generations, as you are a you're an employer and also CHRO from that generation, and currently you have to hire from Gen Zs. So have you found any asynchronous things or highly mismatched between, or like office manners, academics, way of working between these two generations?
Mm. So I think it's a very interesting question because there's always a lot of interesting debate around Generation Z, millennials, how
Hmm.
millennials are stereotyped to have particular behaviors at
Hmm.
work,
Hmm.
how Generation Z has particular behaviors,
Hmm.
right? And how there is so much of difference, which has implications on how managers and leaders manage them, how
Hmm.
organizations needs to do a lot, right, etc., etc. And I think this is something which has always been in trend, right? Uh, I believe it's a byproduct of uh, good, interesting consulting organizations, right? That's why we talk a lot about this. My personal view is there is no difference at all between generations.
Okay.
So and I feel it's a myth.
Okay.
It's a myth that Generation X is different than Generation Y, and Generation Y is different than Millennial is different than Generation Z. And now we are talking about alphas, right?
Hmm.
I don't believe there is any difference. And there is a reason why I say this. There is no difference between generations. The only difference is people are born in different era.
Hmm.
They are born in different
Times.
civilizations.
Yes.
They're born in a different civilization. They
Hmm.
are born in a different era.
Hmm.
Now, someone who was not even there in pre-computer times,
Hmm.
right? And someone born in a Instagram era, right?
Hmm.
Obviously, there has to be a difference in technology.
Hmm.
Now, nowadays, we talk about that, hey, it's a Insta generation. Why do we have
Hmm.
to call it an Insta generation, right? But that's the era in which I am born.
Hmm.
So I have access to technology. I have access to tools. This
Hmm.
technology is not there.
Hmm.
So it does not make me any different. So we have
Hmm.
to understand my behavior is like this, and my behavior is conditioned because I have access to all these things.
Yes.
Now, we like to define that, hey, millennials and Generation Z, they need instant gratification,
Hmm.
right? They
Hmm.
are carefree. They are not very serious with their jobs and roles, right? I mean, it is there because they don't have to be serious with a lot of things that the earlier generation gave to them. So the first or the second generation, our grandfathers, it was all about roti, kapda, and makan.
Makan. Yes. All the basic
They had to fight
necessities.
for it.
Yes.
They had to fight for it
Hmm.
because India as a nation, India as an economy was not open. They had
Hmm.
to fight for everything, and hence people used to spend 30 years, 40 years in one company.
Hmm.
There was a huge responsibility and onus on them to make a family, right?
Yes. Yes.
There was no investment opportunity back then.
Hmm.
Now, when the next generation came, so I think a lot of things were anyways taken care, right?
Yeah.
तो उनको केवल रोटी के लिए काम करना था.
सही बात है.
Maybe Makan was taken care
हाँ.
by the early generation. So they
हाँ.
had to only work for roti and kapda.
Hmm.
So which means they can afford to have, let's say, two or three jobs in their career
हाँ.
versus, let's say, the third generation wherein everything is taken care.
Hmm.
They don't have to fight for the makan so much. They don't have to fight for roti and kapda so much. The
Hmm.
world is open. Economy is open. Information is wide open. They already
Hmm.
have mobile handsets in their
Hmm.
hands.
Hmm.
So what they need to do is they just need to, acquire knowledge,
Hmm.
skills with respect to Instagram, Facebook, etc., etc. Right? And that's why we call them, or we typically stereotype them as they are not serious because they are always on Insta making reels and posting pictures or Snapchatting, etc.
Yes. Okay.
I think they are doing this because that's the era in which they are,
There are. There are.
right? So
Yes. Yes.
what I believe we have stereotyped the generation based on the era in which they are born, which is not right.
And they have been brought
Fundamentally,
up.
the behaviors, yeah, they have been brought up, right? So
Yes.
fundamentally, the behaviors are all same. Humans behave the same manner, but in different times. I'll give you another analogy. That's the first answer, that it's a stereotyping. Second, if you go to any generation, do you know what they will tell? They'll tell you about the next generation or the following generation.
That too.
If I go to your granddad and ask about your dad, what will he tell me?
He took all the responsibilities. उन्होंने बहुत अच्छे से care किया. I mean, by that generation, that they are stereotyped as, if I say it. So कि हाँ, yes,
So,
and
see,
responsibilities.
I'll tell you what will happen. If I go to your granddad, right, and ask him about your dad, you know what he'll tell me? He'll tell me that, he doesn't take responsibility. In our times, हम तो बहुत कुछ करते थे,
हाँ, नदी तैर के
ये तो
जाते
कुछ भी
थे.
नहीं करते हैं,
हाँ,
ठीक है?
हाँ.
And if I go and ask your dad about you, what will he tell me? He will tell exactly the same. He will say कि यार हमारे जमाने में तो हम इतनी मेहनत करते थे.
हाँ.
In our times, we used to take a lot of responsibility. Because see, you have to understand, it's a generational stereotyping complex, is what I usually tell. It's a generational complex where the earlier generation or the senior generation always feels the other generation as inferior. They feel that they are less serious. And that's normally the case, right, with parents. My dad always believes, even today, that I am less serious in life. He always feels here I'm a little careless. Your mother will still question you, have you eaten or no, if you're traveling. There is a reason, right? While there is an emotional side to it, which you cannot take out of the equation, but your parents will always ask you even today.
Yes, yes.
Because the earlier generation always feels the following generation is a little less stable, little less responsible, is a little less serious, right? And which is quite natural with every generation. So it naturally happens. So we don't have to do anything.
Yes,
That is how, I would say generations
the reason I asked
are.
this question,
But
because
we have,
along with the Pew Research and many other researches available along with LinkedIn and Indeed, I mean, they are all based on the surveys. Depends on what kind of sampling they are having and what kind of responses they have. So they are available. They are talked over LinkedIn, Insta, and even as the Insta generation, and LinkedIn, even sometimes Facebook as well. I belong to millennials, so that's why sometimes Facebook is also that platform where they talk. So that's why I wanted a proper insight on that. That how do you, because how do you see, which you actually yes answered that yes, people are brought up in different eras, and that's how they somehow behave or
so
they.
so HR heads and organizations have to understand the context and the era in which they are born, and then apply practices according to that. Not because someone is 22, hence they will behave differently, or
Yes.
someone who is 35 will behave differently. I mean, they might behave differently. So organizations need to understand the context and the era in which the talent is being born, and then create initiatives or practices accordingly. And I think the better you understand the context, better you will be able to handle and manage the talent, and not with respect to their age.
It's very rational. I mean, yes, absolutely logical and adaptable. So after that, I'm coming to my next question. That yes, as probably 40 years ago, there were not many unconventional streams and of branches of in education, just like as we were talking about. So in your entire journey, and from the academics to currently being the CHRO of Fitelo, have you found some unconventional stream I mean, if you ask me, then labor laws is one of the very good streams. So, have you found some that may amaze you and amazed you that yes, they can be needed in the future?
So I think future continuously evolves here. I
Hmm.
don't think I can actually predict, what future holds.
Hmm.
While there are a lot of pundits, they can predict, what is the next big thing. I believe that all of us do evolve.
Hmm.
I think fundamentally, you know, we need to place importance on learnability.
Hmm.
Now, what new thing uh, comes to us, what changes out of a sudden is something that we do not have any control on.
Hmm.
Now, we can just try and project or even predict, but I think, I mean, there's no accuracy around that. So I believe that one should be open enough to learn new things. Now, be it AI or be it aero defense or be it marine, or let's say could be any other skill, which no one has ever heard. And let's say, in another 2 years, those things are in front of us. I think, it's all about learnability,
Hmm.
uh, open to learn new things,
Hmm.
uh, being open. Uh, Third, I would say is, show resilience and persistence in whatever we do, right? Not get bogged down by a lot of things, about a lot of changes,
Hmm.
about not having, let's say, successful career in physics, and then, looking at our peers who are doing great in engineering, right?
Hmm.
So you need to have a lot of resilience and persistence,
Hmm.
which I believe is very, very underrated in today's time.
Yes. Yes.
And fourth, I would say that there needs to be a lot of self-awareness. So I think these are the four things I believe one needs. And no matter what times are we in, no matter what new big thing is coming, I think we should and we will be able to sail through.
That's a very good thing. Yes, yes, learnability and yes, resilience and patience. I totally yes, because sometimes in today's time it's literally underrated. On that note of learnability, uh, it has been written, it has been manifested, and many people, many researchers have written it that travel makes you learn, makes someone learn very much, and you love travel,
Mm,
and it really expands anyone's viewpoint and horizons. Even today, and the reason I'm asking this question because it's very
mm,
there are many superiors and seniors in many offices who don't like when their juniors ask for leave to travel. That sir, मुझे घूमने जाना है, मैं यहाँ जाना चाहता हूँ. So sometimes, I mean, I have heard it. I'm sorry, many times even not, it's not only me that my friends, even many of them, even many over LinkedIn as well. अच्छा घूमने जा रहे हो नहीं मिलेगी छुट्टी. So how do you see this all situation and travel? And since you like travel, and travel is also an industry and economy. That's why I'm
mm.
asking.
So, I'll share how I've been able to kind of do this.
Hmm.
So, as someone who reports into someone, right? Because आपको उनको भी manage करना है.
Ah, yes.
So just do two things. Keep your personal and professional separate.
Yes.
Right. The problem is when you intermix a lot of things.
Hmm.
Right. Keep your personal very, very separate.
Hmm.
Right. And we have to understand that all of us are professionals. Now, if I'm dead serious about my work, if I'm dead serious about my results, I
Hmm.
think nothing else matters. Right. So if I can deliver whatever is expected of me, whether I operate from a barista or I am operating from Goa, how does it
Hmm.
matter? It does not matter. And when
Hmm.
you started your conversation, you spoke about COVID. I think
Yes.
COVID has actually changed a lot.
Yes.
It has changed perspectives and it has also opened up perspectives
Hmm.
a lot,
Yes.
right? So now, it's not about where you're operating from. It's
Hmm.
not about where you are going to. It's
Hmm.
not about what you're doing along with your work or outside of your work, right? If you take onus of your results, your delivery, your work, and still do a lot of things personally or alongside, I think that's fine. So my advice is keep personal and professional
Separate.
separate. Second is for a lot of roles wherein there's a lot of onus and time is a paucity, right?
Hmm.
And sometimes it's a luxury that you can't afford, right? You try and make the best use of whatever you can.
Hmm.
For example, I was on a work trip last week and I had to travel out of Delhi. I had to take a flight and then cab. So it was almost like, about 6, 7 hours of journey. Now, how do you utilize and leverage that 6, 7 hours is something that's up to you. While I had to deliver work and I have to take care of work, I did that. But alongside work, right, this is something that no one can take away from me. If I have to spend 6 hours on the road in a cab, I think I have to.
Yes.
Now, how do you make use of that? How do you convert that into, let's say a leisure activity
Hmm.
or a travel opportunity or an opportunity to get exposure to something new
Hmm.
or to see something or to experience something? It's
Hmm.
entirely up to you.
Hmm.
So I get an opportunity wherein I deliver work and experience this. I do both. So
Hmm.
that means, if you are not being able to do the first thing, which is keep your personal and professional separate.
Hmm.
The second aspect is whatever opportunity you get, you make the best use of that opportunity and you try and multitask.
Hmm.
So you have to
Absolutely.
multitask.
Yes.
Now, if you do multitask, then obviously you will also enjoy your work. You'll also look forward to your trips, your work trips,
Hmm.
and you will also create time for yourself.
Hmm.
So then you will not comment about work-life balance.
Hmm.
Then we can come and talk about work-life integration.
Hmm.
In a work trip, if you can get a luxury of 3 days of personal travel,
Hmm.
and if you're happy doing that, I
Hmm.
don't think that's a problem.
Very well put it. Yes, that definitely that yes, personal and professional separate. So I'm just coming to my last question. That any corporate practice or any custom tradition in your earlier days that is you find unwanted and irrational, and they are not adopted at Fitelo, if any comes to your mind, anything.
No, so I will not comment about what we don't appreciate and what happens or doesn't happen, but I can comment about how times have changed.
Hmm.
So I spend good amount of time in consulting.
Okay.
Right. One good thing which has happened over a period of time is the entire shift from being so very formal to being okay with semi-casual. Now, back in consulting, it used to be like military. I mean, you have to dress up a particular style,
Yes.
right? Your hairstyle should be presentable, right? The amount of facial hair that you can afford on a client project.
Hmm.
And all these used to really matter a lot back then,
Yes.
not
Right.
just to me, but to a lot of people as well.
Yes. It
Now,
was.
from that time to now, the times wherein, and thanks to the startup ecosystem, wherein, we have a lot of these cool new age organizations coming in who have
Hmm.
changed the mindset
Hmm.
of how work happens in companies
Hmm.
to, the entire talent landscape,
Hmm.
which has also put in a lot of pressure on the employers,
Hmm.
right? Now, you could afford to see people in semi-casuals. You could
Hmm.
afford to see people in Crocs.
Hmm.
You could afford to see people not worrying a lot about how they look or how their appearance is,
Hmm.
but what matters is what they deliver
Hmm. Absolutely.
in their
Yes.
job.
Yes.
So I think this is a beautiful shift, which I feel is very interesting and it's quite positive. You don't have to be necessarily uh, uh, you know, blocked in a suit, with with tie, and formal shoes the entire day in scorching summers in Delhi, right?
Yes, actually,
Because you have to deliver
thanks for
something.
mentioning that.
So I think, yeah, I mean, the change in perspective over a period of time
Hmm.
is something which I feel is a good change.
So on that note, I want to thank you for, I mean, in this entire conversation, I want to literally thank you for three things. First of all, that yes, all the labor laws and those things that they are not standardized at a very big level, that somehow they need to be done. And the second one, which was again somehow it comes under the labor laws and the payment, that yes, it is also the whole system has to be overhauled and yes, made rationally by everyone. And third, I would say for the travel,
Mm,
that yes, if someone can afford that, and for that thing. So thanks a lot for taking out time for Education Post News and sharing all the
sure,
insights, and especially these redolence one.
sure, sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks a lot, Tanay. Thank you. Take care.
Great conversation.